You know that feeling, right? That relentless mental spin cycle. You're
Yeah.
trying to drift off to sleep maybe, but your brain has other plans. It's replaying every minor interaction from the day, every what-if scenario, every tiny worry.
Until it feels like you're caught in like a washing machine of
Yeah,
thoughts.
exactly.
Yeah.
That constant churn of worries and what-ifs, even about the smallest things, it leaves you absolutely exhausted.
But no closer to a solution. It's really draining.
Absolutely. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that.
Yeah.
Overthinking.
Okay.
We're going to unpack what it is, maybe why our brains tend to do it, and most importantly, how we can actually, break free.
Sounds good.
Our mission today is to give you a shortcut, really, to getting well-informed on managing this mental clutter. We're pulling some surprising facts and really practical techniques from a great resource that's designed to help you declutter your mind, focus on the present.
It's all about getting the tools to take back control of your inner world.
Precisely. So let's start by painting a picture. What does overthinking actually feel like for people? Our source talks about someone called James.
Ah, yes, James. He's described as, kind, intelligent, maybe a little too self-aware.
Right, so he notices some small health thing, looks it up online,
Oh.
yeah, and quickly gets alarmed, but then he pauses, thinks, okay, I'm probably overthinking this.
Which sounds like progress.
But here's the trap. Instead of stopping there, he starts stressing about his thoughts about his health.
Ah, the meta level.
Exactly. He questions if he needs therapy, what kind, then debates it, puts himself on trial almost, just ruminating. Endless memories, fears.
And it spirals, doesn't it? He starts wondering, do I have anxiety, a panic attack, even schizophrenia? All while telling himself no one else agonizes over nothing like this?
It's a real descent. He remembers times people criticize him, magnifies his flaws, just can't let it go.
And after an hour, say,
Yeah.
he's no closer to a decision about the actual health thing.
Nope. And he sinks into negative self-talk. So if you recognize any of that in yourself, you're likely doing what the source calls meta-thought.
Literally thinking about your thoughts.
Yeah. You might try really hard to control or steer your thoughts, feel distressed by spontaneous ones you don't want.
And thinking itself feels like a struggle, maybe.
Yeah.
Like competing impulses.
Right. Constantly questioning, doubting, judging your own mind, and probably having trouble making decisions, second-guessing everything.
Okay, but here's a really crucial distinction the source makes. It suggests overthinking isn't usually about the actual problem you're focused on.
Like James's health issue or which therapist to choose.
Exactly. Instead, it's often a result of underlying anxiety, not the primary cause of it.
Okay, so it's like scratching an itch. It feels momentarily like you're doing something.
Right, feels slightly better for a second, but it doesn't solve the real issue underneath.
You might tell yourself, if I could just figure this one thing out, then I could relax.
But the insight here is, even if that one thing got resolved, another worry would probably just pop up to take its place.
Because the core issue is the anxiety itself, not the specific thing you're overthinking at that moment.
That's what the source strongly suggests. The overthinking, the rumination, it feels like the problem, but it's more like a symptom, the outward sign of the anxiety bubbling underneath.
So if the thoughts aren't the root problem, what is? Where does this anxiety, this tendency to overthink, actually stem from?
Well, the source breaks it down into a mix of things, nature, nurture, and sort of our own narrative or perspective.
Okay, let's start with nature. Genetics. Does that play a role?
It does, yeah. Maybe more than some people realize. There's a paper back in 2019 in Molecular Psychiatry. It suggested chromosome 9 has genes linked to anxiety. And it found anxiety disorders have about a 26% heritability rate.
26%. So about a quarter of the reason why some people develop anxiety and others don't is down to genetics.
Roughly, yeah. But here's the really important part. Having those genes doesn't mean it's your destiny.
Right. It's not fixed.
No. Their influence can actually lessen as we get older, as our environments change. Genetics are just one piece of the puzzle. That leaves, what, 74%?
A big chunk. So that 74% is down to our environment, life experiences.
Exactly. And one powerful environmental factor is what the source calls the illusion of action.
The illusion of action. What's that?
It's how overthinking can trick us into feeling like we're being productive, like we're tackling the problem.
Even when we're just spinning our wheels, analyzing, rejecting ideas, reconsidering, but not actually doing anything.
Precisely. And it's not just big things. Even seemingly small daily habits can feed into it.
Like what?
Constantly checking social media, poor nutrition, not drinking enough water, irregular sleep.
Things we can actually control, mostly.
Yeah, and that's why it's often a good starting point for change. Those
Yeah.
are often the low-hanging fruit.
Makes sense. So beyond those daily habits, what about bigger external stressors?
They play a huge role. The source talks about how a genetic predisposition combined with stressful events can really trigger overthinking.
And it draws a line between stress, the external pressure, and anxiety, which is our internal reaction to that pressure.
Right. And stress isn't always bad. There's eustress, good stress, that motivates us.
Keeps us on our toes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But overwhelming stress just drains us. And even too little stimulation, hypostress, can cause anxiety too.
So it's about finding an optimal level, not necessarily zero stress.
Right. Balance is key. And chronic stressors are, well, pretty much everywhere these days.
Tell me about it. Work pressure, difficult relationships.
The 24-hour news cycle, politics, climate change. And then there are major traumatic life events.
Like bereavement, divorce, accidents.
Poverty, racism. These have significant impact. And research shows childhood trauma, abuse, neglect is a major predictor for mental health issues later on. It can even make people more sensitive to stress in adulthood.
Wow, that's heavy stuff.
It is. And then there's our immediate physical environment. This is something people often find quite surprising.
Our surroundings, how so?
Well, cluttered homes, messy offices, they can subconsciously mirror your inner state and actually cause anxiety.
Really? Just clutter.
Yeah, and things like the quality of light, smells, noises, even the colors on your walls can significantly affect your anxiety levels.
Huh. I never really thought about wall color affecting my mood that directly.
It's subtle, but it adds up. Our surroundings really do influence our inner world quite deeply.
So it's not just nature or nurture then?
No, the source is clear. It's both. And crucially, it's about how we uniquely relate to both our genetics and our environment.
Okay, so what's the secret ingredient then?
It's our mental models,
Yeah.
our cognitive style,
Yeah.
the frames we use, our inner dialogue. That's what determines if we experience something as stressful or not.
Like the saying, it's not the load, but how you carry it.
Exactly that. It's our appraisal of a situation, not the situation itself, that causes our experience.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If someone has what's called an external locus of control, they don't really feel they're in charge of their life. They might see any challenge as a huge threat.
Which then triggers anxiety and maybe spirals into overthinking about how they can't cope.
Precisely. So what this all means for you, the listener, is that while we can't change our genes or get rid of all stress,
We can change our outlook.
yes, we are empowered to change how we see things. We can manage anxiety better, build up our sense of control, choose hope over fear, just by reframing our perspective and how we engage with life.
That's actually quite hopeful. But okay, let's talk about the cost. What happens when overthinking takes hold?
The source emphasizes it's not just in your head, it's holistic. It hits you physically, mentally, psychologically, socially, even spiritually. There's no part of life it doesn't touch.
Physically, how does it manifest?
Well, when you perceive a threat, your body's stress response system, the HPA axis, kicks in. Hormones, neurotransmitters, it's a whole cascade.
Leading to things like a racing heart, headaches.
Nausea, muscle tension, fatigue, dry mouth, dizziness, faster breathing, trembling, sweating, all the classic.
And over time, if it's chronic,
It can mess with digestion, suppress your immune system, cause memory problems. Your body isn't designed for constant stress. Prolonged overthinking can lead to serious stuff like cardiovascular disease, insomnia, hormonal issues. The physical toll is really significant.
and mentally, psychologically.
Exhaustion, nervousness, irritability, trouble concentrating, lack of motivation.
Changes in appetite, maybe. Or libido.
Yeah, those two. Nightmares, depression, apathy. It really fuels negative thinking patterns, that harsh inner critic, and just chips away at your confidence.
And does it spill over into relationships and work?
Absolutely. Socially, it can damage relationships, lead to poor work performance, make you impatient, cause you to withdraw from people. You might even turn to addictive behaviors to cope.
It sounds like it can really drain the joy out of life. Loss of meaning, compassion.
It really can. And all these things feed each other, creating a vicious cycle.
How so?
Well, the constant stress hormones keep you on edge, which makes you overthink more. Then the stress leads to bad choices, staying up, eating junk food.
Which makes you feel worse, gives you less energy.
Right. And then you perform worse at work, maybe procrastinate more, which just creates more things to worry about. It spirals.
Okay, so this brings us to a really critical point from the source. Stress is a fact of life.
But overthinking, it argues, is optional.
Optional, that's a strong word.
It is. It's presented as a destructive behavior that we can actually choose to stop. With practice, you can retrain your brain, see things differently, and resist that constant grind of anxiety and stress.
Okay, so if it's optional, how do we opt out? How do we climb out of this trap? Where do we start?
The toolkit for calm starts with one crucial foundation: awareness.
Just being aware.
Yes, but a specific kind. The first step is pinpointing what's actually going on in your head and identifying your triggers.
So paying attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's awareness without judgment. Not getting caught up in the thoughts, not resisting them, just noticing. Turning your attention inward to your body, thoughts, feelings, and also outward to your environment.
How do you cultivate that?
Regularly checking in with yourself. How does my body feel right now? What thoughts are running through my mind? What emotions are present? Also, making sure your lifestyle supports you, sleep, nutrition, etc., and maybe incorporating some kind of mindfulness practice. It's about conscious observation.
Okay, awareness first. What else is in the toolkit?
Well, when stress really piles on, it can feel overwhelming. The source offers a kind of lifeboat called the 4 A's of stress management.
The 4 A's.
Avoid, alter, accept, and adapt.
Yeah.
They represent the 4 main ways you can respond to any stressor in life.
Okay, let's break those down. First, avoid.
This sounds simple, maybe even obvious, but you can actually walk away from a lot of unnecessary stress. Think about what winds you up. Hate crowds. Avoid the busy grocery store on a Saturday. Go Tuesday evening instead. Are there certain people who always drain you? Limit contact. Learn to say no to things that aren't essential or that just eat up your time and energy.
So actively removing stressors where possible.
Exactly. You don't have to put up with everything. The second A is alter.
If you can't avoid it, change it.
Right. How can you change the situation itself? Maybe ask someone to change their behavior politely. Asking builders to pause noisy work for 10 minutes while you take a call.
Or using I statements to express your needs to a friend instead of just fuming silently.
Perfect example. Or maybe you can't avoid a situation entirely, like a boring party, but you can alter your involvement by leaving early. You often have more power to change things than you think.
Okay, avoid alter. What if you can't do either?
But then you move to the third A. Accept.
Acceptance. That sounds passive.
Not necessarily. It doesn't mean liking the situation or pretending you're fine. It means acknowledging reality and validating your own feelings about it.
Yeah.
This situation sucks, and it's okay that I feel upset and gray sad.
So acknowledging the emotion without judgment.
Yes, if something is truly out of your control, like a relationship ending, acceptance might involve forgiving not necessarily for the other person, but for your own peace. It can also involve shifting your internal language slightly.
How so?
Instead of, I failed completely, maybe I made a mistake. Instead of, I'm such an idiot, maybe that wasn't my best moment. It's about self-compassion within the acceptance.
Got it. Avoid, alter, accept. What's the last A?
Adapt. This is about making more lasting changes within yourself.
Changing yourself, not the situation.
Exactly. Adapting your worldview, your goals, your expectations. If you're a perfectionist, maybe adapting means consciously lowering your standards to something more reasonable.
Or deliberately practicing optimism, seeing a crisis as a challenge.
Yes. It's about building a mindset that empowers you, maybe through things like gratitude lists, focusing on what you do have, or using daily mantras. You're building an internal arsenal to handle stress better long term.
The 4 A's. That's a really useful framework. Avoid, alter, accept, adapt.
It really is. Another practical tool for building that initial awareness is writing things down.
Journaling.
Yeah, specifically, stress diaries can be powerful. You record details about stressful moments.
Like what details?
Time, date, your stress level, maybe 110, what you were feeling physically and emotionally, how productive you felt, what triggered it, and how you responded.
And what's the point of logging all that?
After a few weeks, you look for patterns. What are your common triggers? How does stress affect your productivity? Are your usual coping methods actually working? Gives you real data to work with.
So you can make more informed choices based on your own experience.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a formal stress diary. Regular journaling for emotional release, gratitude journaling, just listing, say, 5 things you're thankful for each day, or even bullet journaling for organization can all help quiet the mental noise.
Okay, sometimes, though, you need something right now, like when you feel that anxiety spiral starting.
Ah, yes. For immediate relief, there's the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How does that work?
It's often used to pull you out of a panic attack or intense anxiety by forcing your awareness back into the present moment using your senses.
Okay.
You deliberately notice and name 5 things you can see around you, then 4 things you can physically touch, then 3 things you can smell, then 2 things you can hear, and finally, 1 thing you can taste.
See, touch, smell, hear, taste. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right. The main point is distraction. It interrupts the rumination cycle, gives the anxious energy a chance to dissipate.
And it anchors you in the present.
Precisely. Because here's the insight. Your thoughts can easily get lost in past regrets or future worries. But your physical senses, they are always in the present moment.
Yeah.
Right here, right now.
That's a powerful anchor. Your body is always present.
It is. Another approach mentioned is narrative therapy, rewriting your story, essentially.
Narrative therapy. Okay, unpack that a bit.
It explores how we construct our lives as stories and suggests we can rewrite those stories for healing. A key technique is externalization.
Externalization.
Separating yourself from your problems. Instead of thinking, I am an overthinker, you reframe it as overthinking is a problem I'm experiencing right now.
So the problem isn't you, it's something separate that you're dealing with.
Exactly. You are not your anxiety. You are not your depression. They aren't who you are. What's the immediate impact of just that simple shift in language?
It creates distance, maybe. Makes it feel less overwhelming, less permanent.
Yes, it gives you a sense of agency. It's something you have, not something you are. So it becomes something you can work on or with.
How do you practice that externalizing?
You can literally put distance between you and the worry. Write it down on paper, then physically discard it, burn it, rip it up, throw it away, visualizing the problem leaving you.
Or visualize it.
Yeah, imagine blowing the worry into a balloon and letting it float away. Or even give your inner critic a funny name, like Grumpy Gary. So when those thoughts pop up, you can say, oh, there goes Gary again, doing his usual thing. It diffuses the power.
Giving your inner critic a name. I like that. Okay, what else from narrative therapy?
Deconstruction. Overthinking often feels like this huge, tangled mess, right? A million thoughts at once.
Definitely. Overwhelming.
Deconstruction helps you break down those big, scary problems into smaller, manageable steps, like chapters in a story.
How does that help?
It brings focus. You stop trying to solve everything at once and just ask, what is the single most important thing right now? Or even simpler, what single next step can I take? Just one.
Breaking it down makes it less intimidating.
Exactly. And deconstruction can also help reframe difficult memories. By laying out your history, you can look for patterns of growth. See past mistakes not as failures, but as learning experiences that made you who you are today.
Turning weaknesses into strengths, almost.
In a way, yes. Seeing the whole story, not just the difficult chapters.
Okay, moving on from narrative therapy. The source also talks about time management. How does that connect to overthinking?
Poor time management is a huge source of anxiety for many people. Feeling overwhelmed, behind schedule, always rushing.
That definitely fuels worry.
Absolutely. And we often prioritize things that stress us out or things we feel we should do over actual rest and relaxation. Fun gets the leftover crumbs of our time.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Right. So the source encourages deliberately scheduling time for fun, for enjoyment, starting your day with something pleasant, taking proper breaks, actively nurturing your social, emotional, spiritual health. If you don't schedule it, it often just doesn't happen.
You need to be intentional about it.
Very intentional. And it helps to understand your own time management style or persona.
Personas, like what?
The source mentions a few. The procrastinator, who always delays. The perfectionist, who's maybe afraid to finish things. The firefighter, always reacting to crises. Identifying your own tendencies is the first step to managing time better.
Okay, so once you know your style, what techniques can help?
One is Allen's input processing. Great for handling the constant flood of emails, messages, calls.
The inputs.
Right. The idea is when an input arrives, you decide immediately. Act on it now, schedule it for a specific time later, or ignore, delete it.
No more letting things pile up mentally or physically.
Exactly. It streamlines things, reduces that mental clutter of stuff I need to deal with, which cuts down on overthinking about it all. Make a decision right away.
Makes sense. What else?
Eisenhower's method, the urgent important matrix. This is brilliant for prioritizing.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this. 4 quadrants.
That's the one. 1. Do. Urgent and important. Do it now. 2. Decide. Important but not urgent. Schedule it. 3. Delegate. Urgent but not important. Give it to someone else if possible. 4. Delete. Not urgent, not important. Just get rid of it.
It forces you to be ruthless about what really matters.
It does. And it helps you set boundaries, say no more easily, which reduces feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Then, of course, SMART goals.
Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, classic.
Classic for a reason. It turns vague wishes like, I want to be healthier, into concrete actions like, I will eat 5 servings of fruit and veg daily for the next month. Much less room for anxious procrastination there.
True. Any others?
The Kanban method. It's a visual system, often used in project management, but great for personal tasks too, like meal planning or organizing a project.
How does Kanban help with overthinking?
Key principles are visualizing your workflow, seeing tasks move from to-do to doing to done, and crucially, limit works in progress. No multitasking.
Focus on one thing at a time.
Yes. Pick one task, focus, complete it, then move on. It stops your brain jumping ahead, overthinking all the other things waiting. It keeps you present.
These time management tools seem geared towards creating structure and reducing that feeling of chaos.
Exactly, which directly combats a major source of anxiety and overthinking.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Finding inner zen relaxation techniques.
Right, and the key here is that relaxation isn't just collapsing on the sofa. It's an active skill you practice.
Like building a muscle.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
And it has real physical benefits. Lower heart rate, better digestion, balanced stress hormones, improved sleep, more confidence.
What are some specific techniques?
One is autogenic training. Autogenic means self-generated.
Self-generated relaxation. How?
It uses visual imagery, breathing, and body awareness to calm the nervous system. You repeat verbal cues to yourself.
Like affirmations.
Kind of. You might start with, I am completely calm, then focus on specific body parts, repeating phrases like, my right arm is heavy, my right arm is warm, my forehead is pleasantly cool.
So you're sort of telling your body to relax.
In a way, yes. You're inducing states of heaviness and warmth systematically. With practice, you can gain conscious control over things like your heartbeat, calming yourself down at will.
That sounds powerful. Any precautions?
The source mentions caution for people with diabetes or heart conditions and advises checking with a doctor if you have significant mental health concerns. It requires dedication.
Okay. What about guided imagery?
This is about mentally transporting yourself to a calm, peaceful place by engaging all your senses.
Like a mental vacation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source uses a great analogy. If just imagining sucking a sour lemon makes your mouth water,
Yeah, it does.
then imagining a serene beach or forest can trigger your body's relaxation response. You focus on the sights, sounds, smells, feelings of that calm place.
You can also focus on emotional states, like visualizing stress melting away.
Absolutely. Feel the calm, the contentment. Some people find it helpful to imagine a wise guide there, too, if they struggle to immerse themselves.
And progressive muscle relaxation, PMR.
This involves systematically tensing, then deliberately releasing different muscle groups in your body.
So clenching your fists tight, then letting go, tensing your shoulders up to your ears, then relaxing them down.
Exactly. You work through the whole body, face, arms, torso, legs. The contrast between tension and release helps you achieve deep relaxation.
And the benefits.
Beyond anxiety relief, it's good for sleep, easing physical pain, even reducing migraines for some people.
So autogenic training, guided imagery, PMR, they all seem to be about directing your awareness into your body, into the present.
That's the common thread. Learning to consciously shift your focus away from the racing thoughts and into physical sensation, which is always happening now.
Okay, beyond these body-based tools, what about changing the thoughts themselves, rewiring the brain?
That's where approaches from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, come in.
CBT. Heard a lot about that. What's the core idea?
The fundamental premise is powerful. It's not just events that upset us, it's our thoughts about those events. Our thoughts shape how we see the world, how we feel, and how we behave.
So change your thoughts, and your feelings and actions follow.
That's the idea. Think about failure. Same event, say failing a test. If you think, this is unbearable, I'm stupid, you'll feel awful, maybe give up.
But if you think, okay, that didn't go well, what can I learn?
You might feel disappointed, but you'll likely study differently next time. Same event, different thoughts, vastly different outcomes.
Makes sense. But how do you change thoughts that feel so automatic, especially negative ones?
First step is identifying them. Many of us get stuck in specific negative thought patterns called cognitive distortions.
Distortions, like warped thinking.
Kind of. Unhelpful, often inaccurate ways of seeing things. The source lists several common ones. A good question for you to ask yourself is, do any of these sound familiar?
Okay, like what?
All or nothing thinking.
Hmm.
Black and white, no gray areas. Using words like always, never, perfect, failure.
All right, I never get things right.
Exactly. Or overgeneralization. Taking one negative event and making it a universal rule. I failed that date, all relationships are doomed.
Hmm.
Internalizing blaming yourself for things outside your control, like a child thinking their parents' divorce is their fault.
All right.
Or the opposite, externalizing blaming everyone else, never taking responsibility,
Okay.
favoring the negative, focusing on the one thing that went wrong and ignoring the 99 that went right, also called mental filter.
Discounting the positive.
Yeah, that's related. And emotional reasoning. I feel it, therefore it must be true. Like feeling anxious about a presentation means it will go badly.
Even with no evidence.
Right. You look for strong emotional language, words like should or must, untested assumptions. That's where distortions often hide.
So how do you catch these distortions in action?
By tracking them. The ABC model, antecedent, behavior, consequence, helps you see the trigger, A, the thought behavior, B, and the outcome, C.
Like that office party example.
Yeah.
Trigger, free food. Behavior, overeating. Consequence, feeling guilty.
Exactly. Another tool is a dysfunctional thought record.
Sounds serious.
It's just a structured way to capture those automatic negative thoughts. You log the date, time, situation, the automatic thought itself, and how much you believe it, say 0, 100%, your emotions and their intensity, then space for an alternative response and the final outcome.
You can even note which cognitive distortion you used.
Yeah, that helps identify your patterns.
Okay, so you've gathered the data, identified the dodgy thoughts. What next?
You become the scientist of your own mind.
Yeah.
You actively question and challenge those thoughts. This is cognitive restructuring.
How does that work in practice?
When you feel a strong negative emotion, STOP. Notice it. Record the thought behind it using your chosen method, like the thought record. Then consciously generate alternative, more balanced thoughts.
How do you come up with alternatives? Especially if the negative thought feels so true.
Ask yourself questions. What's the actual evidence for and against this thought? Are there other possible explanations? What's the absolute worst that could happen, and could I cope even if it did? Crucially, what would I tell a friend if they had this thought?
We're often kinder to friends than ourselves.
Aren't we just? The source gives an example of Mike, anxious about work, thinking others are constantly watching and judging me.
His alternative could be,
Well, I don't have much evidence people are judging me. Maybe they're busy with their own work. Even if someone has a negative thought, it doesn't mean it's true or defines me. Just generating that alternative can significantly drop the panic level.
so you challenge the thought, find a more balanced one.
Yes. Sometimes, for really stubborn beliefs, you need to test them in the real world through behavioral experiments.
Like actual experiments.
Kind of. If you believe everyone hates me, an all or nothing thought, you could form a testable hypothesis. Maybe some people don't hate me. Then design an experiment, like deliberately observing how colleagues interact with you for a week, noting neutral or positive interactions.
Gathering counter-evidence. What about fears you can't easily test? Like intrusive thoughts.
For those, surveys can help. Not formal ones, but looking online, maybe in forums. For others, sharing similar experiences. Realizing, oh, lots of people have weird thoughts sometimes, can normalize it and reduce the fear.
And discovery experiments.
Those are for challenging ingrained avoidance without a clear why. If you're terrified of something for no obvious reason, a discovery experiment involves just doing something small that pushes against that avoidance to see what actually happens.
It's facing the fear, basically.
Gently, yes. All these CBT techniques also help clean up your general self-talk.
That running commentary in our heads.
Exactly. It often stems from deeper core beliefs. I must be perfect. I'm unlovable. But the self-talk itself is often just mean, full of shame, doubt, criticism.
And addressing that isn't just about logic.
No, it's emotional, too. It involves fostering self-compassion, self-love, challenging that inner bully directly.
How can you actively cultivate more positive self-talk?
Through self-scripting. This is about deliberately creating encouraging things to say to yourself.
Writing scripts.
Yeah, do it when you're feeling calm and rational. Think about situations that trigger your negative self-talk, public speaking maybe. Write a supportive script. Okay, deep breath. You've prepared. Giving a speech isn't life or death. You've done well before. Just do your best.
And then you use that script when the stressful situation arises.
Exactly. Read it beforehand, repeat it mentally. It's like a form of self-hypnosis, consciously directing your inner dialogue towards calm and competence, instead of letting the anxious critic run wild.
So we've covered awareness, stress management, time management, relaxation, cognitive restructuring. Quite a toolkit.
It really is. But the ultimate goal, the source suggests, isn't just collecting techniques. It's about a fundamental shift in attitude and perception.
Becoming a person who faces life with more resilience, more composure.
Yes. Mastering your emotions, not being ruled by them.
How do you cultivate that kind of attitude?
The source outlines what it calls the 5 Attitudes Manifesto, 5 core mindsets to practice.
Okay, what are they?
Number 1, focus on what you can control, not what you can't. Wasting energy fretting about things outside your influence just exhausts you. Focus your energy where it counts, usually, on your own actions and reactions.
Like in that car accident example, you can't control the other driver's anger, but you can control your response, getting the details you need.
Precisely. Number 2, focus on what you can do, not what you can't. When you hit an obstacle, don't just stare at it. Ask, okay, if I can't do this, what can I do instead? Action brings clarity.
The bar that couldn't get a license becoming a successful cafe instead. Finding an alternative path.
Right. Number 3, focus on what you have, not what you don't. Gratitude, basically. We often overlook our blessings. Consciously appreciating what you do have shifts your focus to resources and possibilities, away from lack.
Good reminder. Number 4.
Focus on the present, not the past or the future. Anxiety thrives on what-ifs and regrets. Pull your awareness back to the now. This is where life is actually happening, where you can take action, where help exists.
Like enjoying a new relationship now, instead of letting worries about past breakups spoil it.
Exactly. And number 5, focus on what you need, not what you want. Simplify. Distinguish between genuine needs for well-being and optional wants or nice-to-haves.
The house hunting example, sticking to 3 non-negotiable needs, price, garden, location maybe, avoids getting lost in endless options and analysis paralysis.
Right. These 5 attitudes all circle back to directing your awareness consciously towards empowerment, towards the present, towards what's constructive.
That makes sense. Is there a specific technique for managing emotions in the moment based on these attitudes?
Yes, a very powerful one called opposite action.
Opposite action. Doing the opposite of what you feel like doing.
Essentially, yes. But it's not about suppressing or denying the emotion. First, you calmly observe the feeling, the fear, the anger, the shame. Acknowledge it.
Okay.
Then, you identify what the opposite emotion or behavior would be. And then this is key. You take a small, concrete action in that opposite direction.
Let's use the car accident again. You feel rage bubbling up.
Okay, so you observe the rage. The opposite might be calm de-escalation. So the opposite action is to deliberately speak in a soft voice. Keep your body language neutral, maybe just for the next 10 minutes.
Even if you're fuming inside initially.
Especially then. The fascinating thing is, taking that counterintuitive action often starts to dissipate the original emotion. By acting calm, you start to feel calmer.
You realize you handled it well, didn't say anything regrettable.
And the rumination afterwards lessens. It shows you that you don't have to be swept away by your emotions. You can choose your response. Your feelings are valid. They can ride along in the car, but they don't have to be in the driver's seat.
You choose not to let emotions dictate your actions. That's incredibly empowering.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we've journeyed through understanding what overthinking is, where it comes from, the heavy price it carries.
And a really powerful array of techniques and strategies to combat it.
From building awareness with the 4 A's in journaling, to grounding techniques, narrative therapy,
Time management tools, body-based relaxation like PMR and autogenics.
and the cognitive shifts, from CBT tackling distortions, restructuring thoughts, changing self-talk.
Right up to those core attitude shifts and using opposite action, you now really do have a comprehensive toolkit.
And the core message running through it all, overthinking, while common, truly is optional.
It's a pattern that can be changed. So the encouragement for you listening is to maybe pick just 1 or 2 techniques from this deep dive that really resonated, something that felt like, I could try that.
And start practicing. It takes practice, like any skill.
This exploration of your inner world, taking these steps, really can lead to a calmer, more controlled, and ultimately a more purposeful life.
Absolutely.
And maybe here's a final thought for you to mull over, something we touched on right at the beginning and end. Stress is a fact of life, but overthinking is optional.